You probably already know how critical it is to get positioned very precisely at the gate because it really determines the success of the entire run. If you've ever struggled with picking up the correct lead, or if your horse gets reactive and emotional or loses focus and becomes difficult to control, then stay tuned because today's video will help you start strong to finish fast. Now keep in mind that pretty much every problem you could encounter with your horse will come down to being a physical problem, a mental one as in their education, or an emotional one. In other words, related to how your horse feels. It's important to realize, however, that although remembering this is super valuable for problem solving, that we often have more than one issue going on and coexisting together. For example, for every physical problem, there is a mental and emotional component as well. It's just that with each issue that we experience, it's likely to be primarily in one of these three categories, and so that's where we'll want to direct our attention first. To start, because we often rely on a team of professionals to assist us in ensuring that our horses are comfortable and feeling their best, it's so critical to realize that especially when it comes to leads and lead changes, that horses that are even a little bit sore will really struggle with this. Keep in mind that hock, stifle, or back issues might not necessarily show up as excruciating pain, but to the horse might feel more like weakness. They just physically can't step under and reach like they should if they weren't restricted. There are just so many little things our horses do to tell us they're physically uncomfortable, and it's really up to us to develop our eye and feel for these things. We really can't be too detailed here. So I can't say enough how important it is to even get second opinions or to travel 8 hours if you must to get to a good vet. Or if your horse checked out by a good chiropractor 2 months ago, doesn't mean that there's a different or much more serious issue going on now. So in today's video, I'm not going to go into super depth on how to help horses that refuse to enter the arena, since that's an entirely separate topic and one I'll be covering or have covered in the past and will link to below. So next, let's talk about a horse that stays fairly level-headed emotionally at the gate, but they just refuse to yield no matter what you do to set them up for the correct lead. They just don't respond. This is most likely what I'd consider to be an educational issue. One way to describe respect is how well a horse yields from pressure. So if you put leg on your horse and ask him to move over and you don't get a result, then there's a hole in that horse's responsiveness. Somewhere along the line, he failed to understand that the message, when you put your leg on his side by the back cinch, for example, that he is to unconditionally step over, shift his weight, and yield his body. The reason hip control is so important is that when we can isolate and move the hip over, we can put more of the horse's weight on that specific hind leg. And when we time it right, we can ask for lope departure when they are in this position to make it likely they will pick up their correct lead. Now, in advanced stages, I don't want to have to contort my horse's body into an extremely exaggerated bend, because when the horse's body is straight and more balanced on all 4 feet, they're actually more powerful. But you may need to exaggerate and emphasize the yielding of the hip and the arc through the body in order to set your horse up for the correct lead for a period of time until it becomes a solid habit. Or you may need to only shape your horse for a step or two and then assume a straighter posture. So to fix this, we need to do 3 things. First, we need to revisit the basics and get our hip control so refined that it's more likely to hold up under these more stressful circumstances. There cannot be a split-second delay. The yielding of the hip has to be instant and it has to be light, because you're not going to have a conversation about this in the alley. It has to be, yes ma'am, I've got it, from your horse. Again, you may need to exaggerate to refine this, and I'll include a link below to some detailed steps for refining your horse's response to leg pressure, which is a good idea to work on away from the pattern first. At minimum, I don't even consider showing a horse the pattern until they can pick up both leads when I ask for them on a straight line. It's really all about teaching them that there is a connection between my body language and how they should position their body. When I ask for a lope departure, the side of my body I want to strike off on might be a little more forward, but I'll try not to lean forward. If anything, I'll want to push some energy diagonally across from my opposite seat bone as I apply right leg pressure, for example, to shift the hips to the left and ask for the left lead. In early stages for the horse to learn, I might only ask for lope departures in the corner of an arena, and I just keep setting them up for success so they make a connection between my body language and their own, and they get a habit of always picking up the correct lead. If they pick up the wrong lead, I break down in gait and ask again. Here are a couple examples of things I should be able to do to demonstrate excellent hip control. Once your horse is becoming really solid at picking up the correct lead at home, you'll want to go out and test it. If your horse has a history of picking up the wrong lead at the gate, make this a gradual process to really set them up for success by testing them first on the pattern at home, at a friend's place, or in an exhibition, and only advance to competing and testing it there when you've already built success in those slightly lower stress environments. When he is ready to test, you may have to firmly hold your horse's body in position and almost make the correct lead happen at first, just to start that process of breaking the old habit. And remember that we're always shooting for lightness, but if your horse makes assumptions about something, you can't back off. You might need to just hold your position when you've prepared him, and to hold him accountable and communicate very clearly that this new education applies in the alley and under all circumstances. Most of all, you really want to avoid ever putting your horse in a position to just rush through and pick up the incorrect lead ever again. It only takes one time to revert back to an old bad habit, so remember how critical it is to set yourself and your horse up for success. Don't test your work until you're confident and you have gradually simulated and tested yourself in certain environments as you build your way back to competing. This applies really to any problem you're fixing that only seems to occur on the pattern. Of course, remember, any moment that your horse has a breakthrough, make sure you relax, give some sort of micro-release, even just smile, ease off the pressure, just soften in your body, tell him good boy, give your horse a rest. When your horse does really well, give them a big retreat while giving smaller micro releases along the way. This really motivates them and helps them to learn and stay motivated to keep trying and keep learning, because by doing so we're making it much more clear what we're looking for. Horses that understand what we want with clarity are happy horses that want to keep trying and keep working. Next, I wanted to talk about a horse that, due to emotional issues, cannot be positioned precisely at the gate. Now, this might be a horse that loses focus, that pushes through pressure, and just loses any and all mental or physical connection with the rider. The horse might be very highly educated and even very sensitive, but it's not so much that they are choosing to be disobedient. It's not that they won't go in the arena out of disrespect, it's more like they can't. Like a case of brain freeze or stage fright. In these cases, for me, I never think of what can I do to get by, or what can I do to get this behavior or symptoms to stop, or what can I do to just get the horse in the arena. What I always want to know and correct instead is the reason why they are resistant and address the problem at its source. And there could be a lot of different things going on that have contributed to the horse's habit of anxiety and unresponsiveness over time. But in general, I'll say that horses that have trouble at the gate are indeed having some trouble of some sort elsewhere. It's just that we're not often aware enough to notice. For example, like a split second that a horse doesn't want to lead off from pressure from the halter is completely related to refusal in the alley. Remember, what we allow is what will continue. So we have to make sure we are consistent, that we have high standards in every single thing we do with our horses, that we address small issues as they come up, on or off the pattern, and that we offer quality leadership to our horses to build their confidence, and especially that we make it easy to be calm, connected, and responsive, and that we make it difficult for them to be anxious, distracted, and unresponsive. It can often come right down to training them to be calm through creating and then rewarding the positive state of mental focus, relaxation, and connection that we want. So if I were to have a horse that was all over the place and not really thinking at the gate, but I had done my homework outside of that environment and was ready to test the newfound education in emotional fitness in the alley, and they reverted back to some of that old behavior, some techniques you can use in that moment are to flex your horse laterally back and forth, and don't release until you have softness in the face and mental connection. So look for your horse's eye or ear to come back to you. You might also move the horse's hindquarters around, as much or as little as necessary, just to reiterate your leadership position. In the alley, of course, you don't have a lot of time here, so your timing has to be so quick to interrupt any pattern of disconnect by moving their feet, bringing their attention back to you, and giving them a little micro-release for their soft responsiveness and mental engagement by relaxing your body and just softening or even smiling. Now, I don't have a history of wearing spurs to run in, but just make sure as you're doing this that you have the tools you need to be effective. I really work to develop my horse's response to light leg pressure without spurs as well, but it's better sometimes to have that tool and not need it than to need it and not have it, especially when you're correcting a habit of a horse that's pushing through pressure or taking over in the alley, and you need to reiterate the positioning to get the correct lead to be effective. Because allowing the issue to occur even one more time means serious backtracking. What it comes down to, whether our horses are their physical responsiveness or emotional fitness, it's a matter of having high standards, quick and excellent timing for applying pressure and release, comfort and discomfort. So going forward, remember to make it easy to yield and calmly respond to you in the alley, and to make it difficult not to. And most of all, especially make sure that you've done your part to prepare your horse in advance. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.